चैतन्यसंयुतम् नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिने नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पश्चात्तिरसतारिणे वंशाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरये। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। मदेकबन्धुमत्सङ्गेन महाधन निस्तारकमध्यात्मदानन्दनमस्तुते। प्रसादु साधुतादायिन् अतीच तारक आमञ्च कदाचिन्मां प्रणालिकण्ठय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome to our regular reading of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, we are in Canto 1, Chapter 15, discussing the Pandavas' entire timely. So, in this chapter, we have been hearing Arjuna, after he returned back from Dwarka, he met Maharaj Yudhishthira and he is narrating what has happened. So, while narrating, he came to a point, he clarified Yudhishthira Maharaj's doubt whether Arjuna was defeated by somebody inferior to Arjuna. Arjuna, in response to Maharaj Yudhishthira, he said, yes, when I was protecting the Mahishis and guarding them to bring them to Hastinapur, in the way I was defeated by the infidels. And in purports, Prabhupada commented, we have heard last time that these Gopas who came and fought with Arjuna were actually not different from Krishna, because he narrates the past time where in Brahma Puran and Vishnu Puran explains the curse of the Ashtavakra Muni was fructified by such pastime. The daughters of the demigods once laughed at, actually wanted to receive the boon from the Muni, Ashtavakra Muni, to have Krishna as their husband. And as these girls, they laughed at the by seeing the deformation of Ashtavakra Muni's body, then he cursed them. But again, they are told that and Krishna will also again get them back. So in that way, they will be stolen by the rogues. Again, Krishna will also, they will get Krishna. So finally, Krishna actually got them. Otherwise, how is it possible that these Mahishis who were with Krishna, they took part in the pastime of Krishna, they were serving Krishna, can be kidnapped by the rogues, by the infidels? It is not possible. So having said that, now in text number 21, Arjuna is very deeply aggrieved and he has realized that without Krishna's presence, or when Krishna withdraws his power from a devotee, what happens to such a person? When Krishna favors a devotee, he is always glorious, he is victorious in all fields of life. But when Krishna withdraws his power, then his life becomes valueless. That's what, with full regret, Arjuna speaks. So Sridhar Swami, by commenting to this verse, in the introduction, he writes, Sri Krishna Vyogena, Sri Krishna Vyoga eva atra hetu na anya ityaha tat iti. So Arjuna has found himself to be devoid of all good fortune. Even though he has same Gandiva bow, same chariot, he is same warrior, but today he is defeated by the infidels. Why it has happened? Krishna Vyogena. Because he is separated from Krishna, that is the main cause. Means Krishna's power has been withdrawn from Arjuna. That's how he is in this condition. Text number 21. Tadvai dhanustai shava saratho hayaste soham rakhi nipatayo jatanamanti sarvam kshanena tadabhudasati saritam Bhasman bhutam upakarathamibot Nivotamusyam. So he's saying, Tadvai Dhanusa Ishava. I have the same Gandiva bow, same arrow, same chariot, and same chariot is drawn by the same horses. So Ham Rathi, I am same Arjuna, who is the charioteer. And Nripatayo Jatana Manti, all these kings who used to submit themselves unto me. What happened to me? Sarvam Shanayana good. So he's saying everything all of a sudden became null and void. Means I am devoid of the power. He is giving an example, 3 examples he is giving. Bhasman Bhutam. When oblations are offered, it's just like I have become powerless or valueless without Krishna's presence, without Krishna's power. Just like offering up oblations to the ashes, or he's saying, Kuhakaradham, or attainment of wealth by some magic wand, and or sowing of the seeds on barren land. Therefore, Arjuna is feeling deep separation from Krishna. As we have discussed more than once, one should not be puffed up by borrowed plumes. All energies and powers are derived from the Supreme Source, Lord Krishna. And they act as long as he desires and cease to function as soon as he withdraws. That means, as soon as Krishna withdraws his power, we become well-less. That is the point, and Arjuna has realized today. So, Prabhupada writes further in the purport, all electrical energies are received from the powerhouse, and as soon as the powerhouse stops supplying energy, the bulbs are of no use. In a moment's time, such energies can be generated or withdrawn by the supreme will of the Lord. Material civilization without the blessing of the Lord is child's play only. As long as the parents allow the child to play, it is all right. As soon as the parents withdraw, the child has to stop. Human civilization has all activities thereof must be adopted with the supreme blessing of the Lord, and without the blessing, all advancement of human civilization is like decoration on a dead body. It is said here that a dead civilization and its activities are something like clarified butter on ashes. The accumulation of money by a magic wand and the sowing of seeds in a barren land. So it's a very clear explanation given by Arjuna that as long as we are endowed with the favor of the Lord, then we can see all good fortune, all success in our life. Therefore, Prabhupada is saying material civilization without blessing of the Lord is child's play. That means Lord being the Father, He engages everybody, He empowers everybody. Everybody gets their name, fame, adoration, position in this world, and being favored by the Lord's power. And as soon as Lord stops supplying His favor, then our so-called attempt in this material world turns to vain. That is the point. Then he continues. Rajan Stoyan Krishtanam Suvidam Sudre Viprasapa Vimudhanam Nidnatam Mustivir Mitha Bhavnim Madiram Vitva Madunmothi Chetasam Ajananatanivananyam Chatu Pancha Sheshitaha. So Arjuna, he didn't want to narrate this, but still he is speaking what has happened. So he is saying that, O king, since you have asked me about our friends and relatives in the city of Dwaraka, I will inform you that all of them are cursed by the Brahmanas. And as a result, they all became intoxicated with wine made of putrefied rice and fought among themselves with sticks, not even recognizing one another. Now all but 4 or 5 of them are dead and gone. So, Arjuna is narrating the past time when the Yadavas are cursed by the Brahmana. We know this past time. This is verse number 22 and 23. We know from the Krishna book, it's explained in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Once upon a time, while playing, the boys of the Yadus, they wrapped cloth on the belly of Samba, and they went to this Muni asking what kind of boy, whether it's a male child or female child will be born. So the Muni, he became very upset. Then he cursed them. He said, the one who is going to take birth from this womb, and as the children came back home and they uncovered the cloth from the belly of Sambho, they found there was a big pistol, iron pistol. And when this matter was communicated to Ugrasen, then Ugrasen was very much disturbed. And then he took the pistol and went to the ocean, and that's how he crushed to the dust and put it in the ocean water. And in that way, this dust eventually grew to a kind of grass, which is called Erica grass. And when this Yadavas, Krishna, when he wanted to remove the burden from the earth, he brought all these Yadavas near Prabhas Kshetra on the shore of the ocean. And there, Baruni Madiram Pitta Mudon Murtha Chetasam, having drunk Baruni. What is that? That intoxicant was prepared from the putrefied rice. Srila Siddhar Swami is writing Baruni Annamayim, means it was prepared from the putrefied rice. Adam Adam Iva Ananya Meka Iraka Musti Nidnatam. So they took this grass. It is explained in Mahabharata that when they took this grass, when this grass reached the hand of the Yadava, they turned to cloud. And with that grass, they started beating with each other without recognizing who is who. Even some of them, they beat Krishna also. And then what happened? And then no, all of them were actually killed except a few, 4 or 5 remaining. That's what was narrated. So now the question can be asked, why this thing happened? Who is actually the cause of this? Who is essential performer of this act? Is described in next 3 verses. Text number 24, 25 and 26 speaks about who is actually the cause of such an act. Rayanaita Bhagavata Ishwarasya Vichashtikam Mitho Nighnanti Bhutani Bhavajanti Jajanmita. Actually, this is all due to the supreme will of the Lord, the personality of Godhead. Sometimes people kill one another, and at other time they protect one another. So it is very nicely explained here that there is no one else as the cause of such a destruction, but actually that happened by the will of the Supreme Lord. So Prabhupada, commenting on the purport, he says, whenever therefore there is disobedience of the established rules enacted by the Lord, there is war between men and nations. Very powerful statement. Nowadays the whole world is turning towards atheism. Everybody is becoming atheistic. Nobody has regard for the instructions of the Supreme Lord. Today we will see when Arjuna, in such a condition, he remembered the instruction which he received in the beginning of the battlefield of Kurukshetra, in the battle of Kurukshetra. So when he remembered this Bhagavad Gita, then he came to his consciousness, and then he attained the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. So, while in that series of purports, Prabhupada explains that this Bhagavad Gita, the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, is meant for all people at all time in all nations. That means without time, place, and circumstance, caste, color, and creed, everybody is supposed to take shelter of this Bhagavad Gita teachings. So therefore, whenever there is disobedience of the established rule enacted by the Lord, means the teachings of Bhagavad Gita gives us the information about If the human civilization want to live in peace and harmony, apart with the will of the Supreme Lord, then they should just follow the instructions of the Lord. Whenever there is a disobedience of the established rule, then we can expect there is war between men and nations. That is what is happening today. So, because people in the world today are not adhering to the principles of the Lord given in Bhagavad Gita and other such Vedic literatures, therefore they are entering into the war field and inviting unrest and many form of misfortunes in the human civilization. The surest way to the path of peace, therefore, is dovetailing everything to the established rule of the Lord. This reminds us about the urgency of distributing this message of Godhead to one and all. So we are reading this Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. We should understand this philosophy properly, and then we must distribute it to one and all. The established rule is that whatever we do, whatever we eat, whatever we sacrifice, or whatever we give in charity must be done to the full satisfaction of the Lord. So the interesting point actually, you see, this is the instruction of Bhagavad Gita. Everything, whatever we eat, everything should be done as an offering to the personality of God. But how people can do that successfully? They need training. They require a guru. Therefore, Prabhupada, he has very nicely narrated this philosophy, and we hope that when the whole world understands that Krishna is the only enjoyer, Bhaktaram, Jagya Tapasam, Sarvaloka Maheshwar, Sulitam Sarvabhutanam, Gyatamam Shanti. So when they are trained with the approach, when they are trained with the practical approach to the philosophy that he narrated in Bhagavad Gita by a qualified spiritual master, the whole world get to such a practice, then we can expect there is a privilege, there will be a privilege of peace and prosperity in the entire human civilization. Otherwise, we will be crushed to death. Prabhupada continues. No one should do anything, eat anything, sacrifice anything, or give anything in charity against the will of the Lord. Discretion is the better part of valor, and one must learn how to discriminate between actions which may be pleasing to the Lord and those which may not be pleasing to the Lord. An action is thus just by the Lord's pleasure or displeasure. There is no room for personal whims. We must always be guarded by the pleasure of the Lord. Such action is called yoga karma kausalam, or actions performed which are linked with the Supreme Lord. That is the art of doing a thing perfectly. That means when the human civilization have learned what is auspicious act and what is inauspicious act, means the activity which is going to bring pleasure to the Lord and the activity which is going to bring dissatisfaction to the Lord, and they work on that principle. That is the art of doing things properly. Then he continues. So he gives an example here how they are getting annihilated. Jalokasam jale jadvan maham bodha kyani asha durvalan balino rajan mahanto balino mitha evan balishte jaduhi mahadhi taran vibhu jadun jadviranyanyam bhubharan sanjaharaha. So he says, just like the bigger and stronger aquatics swallow up the smaller and weaker ones, so also the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to lighten the burden of earth, has engaged the stronger Jadu to kill the weaker and the bigger Jadu to kill the smaller. So Here the analogy have been given that so those who are stronger and bigger, they eat the weaker one. Then when all weaker are finished, not only stronger aquatics they remain. And then they also fight with each other. So similarly, this, Yadu's Lord who brought this Yadu clan on this earth to remove the burden of the earth. Or you can say with the help of Dronacharya and Bhishma and others, Bhima, Arjuna, he actually annihilated the unwanted burden in this earth. And then still he's saying this Jaduhi Ranyanya Bhuharam Sundhara. These Jaduvamsis who were born in the Jadu dynasty, they were also a type of burden to the earth. And these Jadus, they fought with each other and they were wiped out. So now the question can be asked, those who were born in the Yadu dynasty, in the family of Krishna, how can they be a burden to earth? Right? How can they be burden to earth? Actually, this has been discussed in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, third chapter, text number 14, purports to Prabhupada, the narration of Srila Jiva Goswami is commenting. When Lord referred to that, which actually he has to remove the burden of the earth, the Lord referred to them as burden means he had in mind their imminent disappearance from this world. Or according to Jiva Goswami, Lord is referring to the burden of their separation. So in that way, this is how this concept has been resolved. So Prabhupada gives a very beautiful purport. I just want to read it. In the material world, the struggle for existence and survival of the fittest are laws because in the material world there is disparity between conditioned souls due to everyone's desire to lord it over material resources. This very mentality of lording it over the material nature is the root cause of conditioned life. And to give facility to such imitation lords, the illusory energy of the Lord has created a disparity between conditioned living beings by creating the stronger and the weaker in every species of life. The mentality of lording of it over the material nature and the creation has naturally created a disparity and therefore the law of struggle for existence. In the spiritual world, there is no such disparity, nor is there such a struggle for existence. In the spiritual world, there is no struggle for existence because everyone there exists eternally. There is no disparity because everyone wants to render service to the Supreme Lord. And no one wants to imitate the Lord in becoming the beneficiary. The Lord, being creator of everything, including the living beings, actually is the proprietor and enjoyer of everything that be. But in the material world, by the spell of Maya or illusion, this eternal relation with the Supreme Personality of Godhead is forgotten. And so the living being is conditioned under the law of struggle for existence and survival of the fittest. Desaka yuktani hittapo samani cha haranti sma praschittam govinda dhitani me. Now I am attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the personality of Godhead, Govinda, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning of heart in all circumstances of time and place. This is what I was referring to. Desha kala prajuktani virtapopa samanicha. That instructions in form of Bhagavad Gita, which was given to Arjuna in the battle of Kurukshetra, virtapopa samani, that can eradicate the burning of the hearts. Haranti Smaras Chittam Govinda Rihitani. So Smaranti, when one remembers this instruction given in Bhagavad Gita, that can eradicate burning. Therefore, Prabhupada is saying here in Arjuna refers to the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, which was imparted to him by the Lord on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. The Lord left behind him the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, not for the benefit of Arjuna alone, but also for all time in all lands. Very interesting point. It was a crisis time for Arjuna. When Krishna was there with him, he was very courageous, all success, he attained all success. He was very happy. But now, today, it's a very critical time for him. He personally realized that I am same Arjuna, same chariot, same Gandiva, but all have become powerless. He is understanding the urgency of Krishna's favor. Therefore, Prabhupada is saying, in all critical situations, our civilization should remember the words of Krishna in form of Bhagavad Gita. That means, if the world can take seriously to the instructions given in Bhagavad Gita, that is how they can be freed from all the critical time that have been created in this world. Prabhupada is saying, Bhagavad Gita or any authentic spiritual sound representation of the Lord is also the incarnation of Lord. There is no difference between the sound representation of the Lord and the Lord himself. One can derive the same benefit from the Bhagavad Gita as Arjuna did in the personal presence of the Lord. Very important point. One can derive the same benefit as one can derive the same benefit as the personal presence of the Lord by simply focusing on to the instructions of Bhagavad Gita. That means we can understand why Srila Prabhupada is so particular about spreading this Bhagavad Gita as it is, the message of Bhagavad Gita as it is. Because it's very important. Then Prabhupada goes on to speaking about how the 4 or 5 topics are discussed in Bhagavad Gita: Supreme Lord, Jiva, Prakriti, Kala, and Karma. Karma is temporary. All other 4 factors are Purusha, Prakriti, Jiva, and Kala. They are all eternal. And the relationship between all these objects are discussed, just like we are the part and parcel of the Lord, and Prakriti is energy. In form of Kala, he controls everything. So in that way, when we understand this and surrender to the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, that is how the whole world can become peaceful. So Prabhupada, he writes in the purport that the Supreme Lord is Supreme Controller. The material activity of the living being is beginningless, but it can be rectified by transferal into the spiritual quality. That is what our organization is doing. Whole world is suffering because of their karma and they do not know how to bring an end to the reactions of such materialistic activities. Therefore, people are saying transferal of such activities to spiritual quality. That means when the human civilization has realized how all type of activity can be done on behalf of the Supreme Lord, or as an activity dedicated to the personality of Godhead, that is the way of transferring our material activity into the spiritual quality. That is what ISKCON is teaching to the whole world today. The whole scheme of Vedic wisdom is targeted to the aim of eradicating such misconception and thus liberating the living being from the illusion of material identification. The material way of life is teaching the whole human civilization how they can become more and more engrossed in gross matters. That means identification with this body and the material objects in this world has become an acute disease for the modern civilization. But our goal is, our aim is to eradicating such misconceptions. How will it be possible? When such an illusion is eradicated by knowledge and renunciation, the living beings are responsible actors and enjoyers also. That means the knowledge and renunciation, jnana, vairagya, vidya, person kyapane bhaktya, sruta, grihitaya. Bhaktya, sruto and grihitaya. While executing devotional service, understanding, cultivating the knowledge of Krishna consciousness, hearing it from a bona fide guru, then we have to accept it. That is how we can transcend this misidentification with this material world. So, sharing of the topics from Bhagavatam and of course Bhagavad Gita is also very, very important. So therefore this dharma, or you can say the process of activity which have been given to us by Srila Prabhupada, the recommendation of Srila Goswami is the Sanatana Dharma. And where every civilization, or you can, every civilization in the world that take to the process of the Sanatana principle, religious principles, they can be excused from the suffering of this world. Very important point. Unfortunately, some people today, they think that the Sanatana religious principles which have been introduced in our organization by Srila Prabhupada is an Indian religion. This is not an Indian religion. This is Bhagavad Dharma, Jaiva Dharma. This is the Sanatana Dharma for the living entities. Some they complain why we need to dress in this way, why we need to eat such and food. There is a science behind it, right? Why are you complaining to wear a particular Vaishnava dress? Just we can give this example, try to understand. When people, even in different culture, different civilizations, we know when they go to maybe church or go to the mosque, go to the temple, they wear a particular dress, right? It is recommended. They need to wear a particular dress and go to the church, go to the mosque, go to the temple, or perform some ritualistic ceremony. Like in Bhagavatam also we hear Shomam Bhasa Pradakaritate Vibhrati Suttanadham. When Mother Yashoda wanted this butter for Krishna, she wore a silk sari. Why? It's very auspicious. So similarly, when we perform certain activities, a dress is also often very important value. So why are you wearing dressing like this? No, we don't require to dress like that. Okay, I will tell also. Why you don't want to dress? Because you feel you're transcendental. In the material world also, we have seen in the police department, there is a particular department called, they are actually surprise check group. And these people, they can appear in any situation, in any state, in any place without wearing their uniform, right? Even if CID, okay, good. So even if they don't wear their uniform, they perform their duty and they're actually transcendental to that situation. That is already given order by the government that you don't require to wear your uniform. But a policeman without uniform, he cannot execute his order. He cannot perform his duty, right?
Even in the material world also. Similarly, okay, when you come to that transcendental situation, you don't require to wear these dresses. Wherever you are, maybe you are swimming in transcendental ecstasy, calling Krishna's name, Hey Krishna, Hey Jadava, Hey Sakheti. Maybe you can call Krishna with a mood of Hey Krishna, Hey Jaduvamshi, Hey killer of the Putana demon, please save me, please rescue me. Like in Vrindavan, like Hey Radhe Brajadevi Ke Chalarite, Hey Nanda Suna Kuta, Si Govardhana Kalpa Pada Patale, Kalindi Banne Kuta, Gosunta Viti Sarvata Brajapure, Khedai Mahabhuhalai. Have you come to that stage of consciousness? That your mind is fully absorbed in the pastimes of the Supreme Lord? Okay, you don't require any kind of rules to follow rules, and automatically you are kind of transcendental. But when you are not transcendental, you need to particularly dress yourself particular way, you need to eat in a particular way, you need to talk in a particular way, you need to execute your life in a particular fashion. So therefore, this Sanatana religious principle is not limited to any particular country, time, or place. It is eternal, and it's meant for everybody. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord and the living beings are both described as Sanatana, but eternal, and the Lord's abode, for beyond the material sky, is also described Sanatana. The living being is invited to live in the Sanatana existence of the Lord, and the process which can help a living being to approach the Lord's abode, where the liberated activity of the soul is exhibited, is called Sanatana Dharma. So that means everybody should practice this principle of Sanatana Dharma. Then Sutta Goswami, he comments, Sutta Vaja, Evam Chintayato Jishnu Krishna Pada Sarorvaham Sauhardena Tigadhena Santa Siddhimala Mati. In this way, you can see Krishna's mind was fully absorbed in the thoughts of the pastimes of Krishna. His mind was fully absorbed in the favor of the Lord that was shown to him. Evam Chintayato Jishnu. Jishnu means Arjuna. In this way, as Arjuna contemplated on the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, Krishna Pado Saroruham, he was meditating on Krishna's favor. This is a very important aspect. You see, Arjuna was remembering how in different occasions Krishna actually supported him. Krishna empowered him to gain victory. Similarly, in Krishna consciousness, a devotee, he should always remember Krishna by meditating how by Krishna's grace we have become successful in various walks of life. That is it. That is the meaning of Krishna Pada Saroruham Sauhardena Tigadhena. Out of great affection, as Arjuna meditated, then what happens? Santa Sit Vimalamati. Santa means Vishoka. He became free from grief, and Vimala means Virakta, means he became indifferent in his mind. Then Vasudevang Dhyana Paribrinhitarang Hasa Bhaktya Nirmathita Shesha Prasaya Dhishanorjuna. See what happened. Vasudevangri Anudhyana Paribrinhitaram Hasa. When one meditates on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, what is the meaning of meditating on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord? Means a devotee, he meditates, he remembers how Lord has favored him in different situations, in various situations. How Lord has protected him. And a devotee, by remembering Lord's favor, he is always taking more shelter of the Supreme Lord. That's how the mind's meditation on the personality of Godhead is enhanced by such kind of thinking. That's what he's saying. Vasudevang Anudhyana Paribrahita Chetasa Bhaktya Nirmathita Shesha Asesa Kasaya Dhishana. Asesa Kasaya. That means, as we know, this is a very important verse. We are born with prarabdha karma. This body is a prarabdha actually. The result of prarabdha, we are born in this body. That means, as we go on with this body at different time, we are supposed to experience the reaction of the prarabdhas. But here it is said, as Arjuna, he remembered, he becomes completely pure. So that means, from this example, we can say a devotee becomes completely freed from the prarabdhas as he meditates on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. But again, we have another verse in Padma Puran, Aprarabdha phalam papam kutam bijam phalanmukam kramenaiva praliyeta Vishnu bhakti ratatmanam. Those who are in full absorption with Krishna Bhakti, with the execution of Krishna Bhakti, gradually they are becoming freed from these contaminations of prarabdha, good beach. So Srila Vijayadhara Tirtha, he is very interestingly commenting on this verse. He is saying this Nirmathita Shesha Kasaya Dhishana. He is saying Atra na sarvarabdha karmanam nirmatham abhipreta. By such a statement, it is said that not that all these kasayas, all these prarabdha karmas are completely right. This does not imply the annihilation of each and every act that has already started as a prarabdha karma. Kintu mahata bhagavat karunyadina karanena kesanchit eva. But of those only which deserve to be destroyed by the great divine grace of the Lord. When I was reading this, I was thinking that this prarabdha is so subtle. It's not that immediately eradicated when we take up this path of Krishna Bhakti. He's very clearly saying, he's saying, by the great grace of the Supreme Lord, Mahata Bhagavat Karunyadina Karanena Kesanchit. If we have received a great favor by the Lord, or maybe a pure devotee of the Lord, Kesanchit, at that time certain prarabdha will be destroyed. Otherwise, the principle is, he is saying, Anyatha, Vogene tu itare, Kshapai Twatha Sangpatsyate. He is saying, by Bhogo, he will destroy other, and then you will achieve the freedom. That means, prarabdha, we have to go through this bhoga generally. But if we, that means, Mahata Bhagavat Karunyadina Karanena. By the great grace of the Supreme Lord. Now the question can be asked, how we can get the great grace of the Supreme Lord? That is where we are reminded about the execution of pure devotional service. Maybe when we perform pure devotional service as it is, and then by Krishna's mercy, he may, eradicate. And he's saying Kesanchit. Not everything is eradicated all at a time. Okay? Some he will eradicate. That means we have to be very cautious, very much focused, always be absorbed in the execution of pure devotion. That is the signs of the annihilation of prarabdha karma. Otherwise, it's not going to get eradicated. We have to go through the suffering. Prabhupada writes in the purport, as soon as Arjuna turned his attention towards the instructions of the Lord, as they are inculcated in the Bhagavad Gita, his true color of eternal association with the Lord became manifest, and thus he felt freed from all material contaminations. So that means the meditation on the lotus feet of the Lord is very, very important aspect of the execution of our Krishna consciousness. Gitam Bhagavata Jnanam Jattat Sangamamurdhane Kala Karma Tamoruddham Punaradhyagamat Prabhu Gatim Bhagavata Gitam Bhagavata Jnanam Jattat Sangramamurdhani. Sangramamurdhani means at the head of the Kurukshetra war, the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita which Arjuna had received from Krishna. Kala karma tamaruddham. Very interesting. While commenting to this verse, Srila Jiva Goswami is saying, the Kala karma, that means they are the past of the Supreme Lord. And Tama, he's saying Tama, tal lila visheshena tad ananu sandhanam. Means just now we have been hearing, right? Arjuna was fully absorbed in the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Starting with how they were protected from the curse of Durvasa Muni, how Krishna helped him to burn this Khandava forest. So many pastimes he have been thinking about, means he is fully absorbed. That's why Tattal Leela Vishena. Because he is absorbed in such pastimes of the Lord, that's why he actually forgot to meditate on actual form of this personality of Godhead. Tad Ananu Sandhanam. But here Jiva Goswami, he gives the reference to this Manmana Bhava Man Bhakta Majjaji Mam Namaskuru Mangvasya Satyam Te Prati Jane Priyasime, that anyone who remembers the Lord, he actually attends to his abode. He attends his lotus feet. So this is a very, very important instruction for us in this connection to meditate upon this pastime, that Arjuna, as he meditated, he upon the Supreme Lord, or you can say his pastimes, his entry to the spiritual world became very, very clear to him, or he got the entry. That was the success. Therefore, in the description of the Panchanga Bhakti, where Sri Rupa Goswami says, no, Sadhu Sangha Nama Sankirtan Bhagavat Shravan Mathura Vas Sadhya Simurti Shavan. Many devotees who live in Vrindavan or even other places of the world also, they give a lot of emphasis into this daily, regular study of Srimad Bhagavatam. Why? That is how we are actually engaging our mind, absorbing our mind in the thoughts of the personality of God in its pastimes. And when a devotee does that successfully, by the grace of the Lord, he will gain an entry into the abode of the Supreme Lord. This is the message. So, here it is said that as Arjuna, he meditated on the pastimes and activities, then he remembered. Again, he recollected the knowledge which was sung before him at the beginning of Kurukshetra battle. So in that way, Arjuna got an entry. And Prabhupada is writing, this revival of consciousness is assured by the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 1865, as follows: Manmana bhava mad bhakto majjaji mam namaskuru mam evasya satyam te pratijane priyoshime. One should think of the Lord always. The mind should not forget him. One should become a devotee of the Lord and offer obeisances unto him. One who lives in that fashion becomes undoubtedly endowed with the blessing of the Lord by achieving the shelter of his lotus feet. There is nothing to doubt about this eternal truth. Definitely, anyone who does this will attain to the lotus feet, will gain the shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Because Arjuna was his confidential friend, the secret was disclosed to him. And you can see that is happening to Arjuna right away. Arjuna had no desire to fight with his relatives, but he fought for the mission of the Lord. He was always engaged in the execution of his mission only. And therefore, after the Lord's departure, he remained in the same transcendental position. Even though it appeared that he forgot all the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, one should therefore adjust the activities of life and in pace with the mission of the Lord. And by doing this, one is sure to return back home, back to Godhead. This is the highest perfection of life. Last sentence is very, very important. One should therefore adjust the activities of life in pace with the mission of the Lord. So everybody should learn this art, how we can arrange our daily schedule so that it will be in pace with the mission of the Supreme Lord. What is the mission of the Supreme Lord? The first mission for us is that we should practice Shuddha Bhakti. That is the first mission. Then second mission is we preach. Because achar, then prachar. Without achar, prachar is not going to be happening. When one is doing that, then it is guaranteed that he will get an entry to the abode of the Supreme Lord. Text number 31. Vishuka Brahma Sampatya Sanchina Dvaita Sangshayaha Lina Prakriti Tanairgunyam Alingatpada Sambhavaha. Because of his possessing spiritual assets, the doubts of duality were completely cut off. Thus, he was freed from the three modes of material nature and placed in transcendence. There was no longer any chance of his becoming entangled in birth and death, for he was freed from material forms. So Prabhupada is speaking about this misconception, me and mine. He gives so many examples, my property, my relative, my body, my wife, my children, my community, so on. So one has to become free from such duality. Chinna Dvaita. Then Brahma Sampatya. Brahma Sampatya means by the perception of the Supreme Brahman in human form Krishna. That is Brahma Sampatya. By the wealth of Brahma. Who is that? That is Krishna. Brahma have been defined by different commentators differently, but this is the explanation of Srila Jiva Goswami. Vishoka. One can be completely freed from the bereavement when he has attained Brahma Sampatti. Means Krishna is his goal, his Sampatti, his wealth. By attainment of absolute knowledge, one can be in association with the Lord constantly. That means when we follow the instructions that are given in the Bhagavad Gita by Krishna, we can be in constant association with Krishna. Even in this present life, simply by hearing, chanting, thinking of and worshipping the Supreme Lord, one can see him, one can feel his presence, even in this present life, simply by understanding the Advaya Jnana Lord or the absolute truth through the process of devotional service, which begins with hearing about him. This hearing process is very important actually. When we hear about the Lord, then many misconceptions are eradicated and we actually become purified, our mind becomes absorbed in thoughts of the Supreme Lord. Prabhupada writes, by the grace of the Lord, a pure devotee is at once raised to the place of the Absolute. And there is no chance of the devotees becoming materially entangled again in conditioned life. By the grace of the Lord. One is not able to feel the presence of the Lord in all circumstances until one is endowed with the required transcendental vision made possible by the devotional service prescribed in the revealed scripture. Again, this reminds us about the importance of following Shuddha Bhakti, the practice of Shuddha Bhakti. When you practice Shuddha Bhakti, then the vision which is required for the revelation of the Supreme Lord will be attained automatically. And when one attains that vision, then automatically in this life, in this body, devotee can feel the Lord's presence in his life. Arjuna had attained this stage long before on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. When he apparently felt the absence of the Lord, he at once took shelter of the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, and thus again he was placed in his original position. This is the position of Vishoka, or the stage of being freed from all grief and anxieties. Okay, so we have completed up till 31, text number 31. We will continue from text number 32 in the next class. So now if you have any question or comment, we can discuss your questions. Sadhu Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much for the class as always. Arjun got me confused a little bit because Arjun is saying in verse 24 that whenever there is problem in this world, it's a sign that people are not following the rules of the Lord.
Mm.
And then right after that, verses 20, 25 and 26 is also saying that just as in the ocean, the strong and the animals are by nature allowed to eat up the smaller and the weaker ones. So in society, the strong may also defeat the weak. So how do we correlate when we see, like, I don't want us to get into politics, but like we see in today's world, Russia is stronger than Ukraine, and Russia is attacking Ukraine, which is like a stronger creature in the ocean eating up the weaker one, which from what Arjun is saying is natural, but we know that it is wrong because the strong must actually protect the weak. So I need some help. It's a bit confusing to me. Hare Krishna.
Okay, in this connection, the analogy have been given finally because Krishna wanted to remove the burden of the earth. That's why Krishna used the stronger one to annihilate the weaker one. Then finally, the stronger one also they fought against each other and they are also wiped out. So that also you can see. For example, Russia is fighting today with Ukraine. And what is happening? US is also making the plan how to attack Russia, right? So that means eventually there will be a war between Russia and US. There will be stronger one going to fight again with each other. So that's how they're going to get annihilated. So that is the consequences. So this is how this material world is functioning. And, and it will continue like that. Not that the strong one who is fighting with the weaker one today and getting the weaker one defeated, then he will be in peace. No, again, he will be, again, the stronger one also will fight with each other. But here we are actually meditating on this, that actually Arjuna's bewilderment was not like the bewilderment of the living entities in this material world. Arjuna was actually overwhelmed. He was not bewildered actually. We are actually bewildered because we have not understood the power of the Supreme Lord. That's why we don't follow the current civilization, that don't follow the dictations of the God. And that's why we are at war situation. Arjuna, he was remembering the favor of the Lord in every phase of his life. That's how he was, bewildered that, oh, what did I do? What am I supposed to do now? Then again, he deeply meditated. That's how he attended Supreme Lord's lotus feet. So that is the message here actually. Core message is, when we are studying Bhagavata, where it is actually guiding us, it is guiding us through this line that a devotee, when he meditates on the Supreme Lord, his prarabdha karma is gradually getting eradicated. And that is also happening as per the will of the Supreme Lord. And as he meditates continuously, then his mind is going to become sharp and is going to become more speedily absorbed in thoughts of the Supreme Lord. With that only, he will become completely freed from the material contamination. And then, Mama Vishishi Satyam Te Pratijane Priyasine. Such a devotee is going to get the shelter in the lotus feet of the Lord in his eternal abode. That is the lesson for us from today's class. The signs of entering into the spiritual abode of the Lord. You see the thread flowing in this section. Silas Prabhu. Silas Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Silas Prabhuji.
Sorry, Prabhu, can you hear me? I think there's a logged in on two.
Yeah. No, I can hear.
Kirti is listening on another device, so I think there was a problem with the mics. Apologies. I have a question, Prabhuji. We discussed, you mentioned earlier, and we learned that our achar must be correct before we can do prachar. And yet we see through Prabhupada and through Leela Mitra that Prabhupada was getting these young hippie devotees whose achar was still quite questionable. Some were still pertaining to eating, intoxication and stuff, but he was engaging them to start with prachar. And I think there is also an instance where one hippie boy questions Prabhupada and saying, I don't feel capable of preaching because I'm not of good behavior. He said, you can listen to 2 lines, absorb those 2 lines and repeat those 2 lines. So there Prabhupada is encouraging prachar without the achar being fully developed. How should we read into this? Because I agree with you that you can only preach if you are practicing, but if you're not practicing, how can you preach? But Srila Prabhupada was doing quite the contrary. Now, of course, he's an empowered individual who can empower these individuals to do that. But generally, what should we take and learn from this?
Okay. Why it is said that we should first practice before we preach? Because that is how we can best benefit the one who we are preaching to. On the other hand, when we are preaching, but while we are not practicing, there is a threat that we may fall down from our position at any time. Because when we, without practicing, go out to preach, then it will become very difficult to handle the name, fame, and adorations we may get in course of their service. Because the compassionate nature has not been engraved in the heart of the preacher yet. And that compassionate nature will be engraved in the heart of a preacher when he has received the blessing of the Supreme Lord by following what he is preaching. So the message is, again, now you can say, then why did Prabhupada do that? Yes. When somebody is sincere, he is sincerely doing his service, that service will also gradually elevate him. That means he is going out, he knows he is not qualified, he is not practicing properly, but sometimes there is some discrepancies in him. But he's always cross-checking with himself. What I am doing? How is my mood? How is my behavior? How am I accepting the name, fame, and glory I am getting in return? And he is always trying to practice what he is actually preaching. He is becoming more conscious about his own practice. That then dharma rakshati rakshaka. He is protecting dharma, dharma is protecting him in that way. That's another way also. But on the other hand, if he does not know, he becomes more chaos. He is kind of floating in the external consciousness without giving much value to his inner development. And then there is a very high threat of falling down from the position. And when we are asked to do preaching, we can do preaching because we are ordered. We are given responsibility to do something.
And with respect to people who sit on a Vyasasana, we learn throughout the Bhagavatam that we should hear only from qualified speakers. We should hear because the potency of what we hear, if it's coming from a qualified person, has that much more impact. And if we're hearing from unqualified people, then the potency either is less or may not have any beneficial effect. Yet we see in, I know the thread is the same because you're saying sincerity, but we see within our movement regularly that there are people who are perhaps less than qualified, perhaps are political and still sitting on Vyasas and preaching. And yet we are forced to listen to that situation because they're doing morning programs, morning classes, etc. How should we behave knowing that that message may not be as potent? Should we just carry on listening, or should we say, well, actually, that's a particular speaker that we know hasn't got the same potency? How should we react to situations where we know there are differing levels of, let's say, not devotion, but seniority or qualification when we're listening?
When they are speaking, at least they are speaking the pure knowledge, Prabhupada's purport, as long as they are not kind of mixing it up with their materialistic understanding, that we can accept. And if there is some objection, I mean to say, if there is something spoken which is not in accordance with the understanding of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, that can be clarified from such speakers But in no way we should find fault with them or look down upon them. Whatever the situation may be, by the will of the God, now they are sitting in Vyasasana and they are speaking. We should try to understand and analyze the fact from the proper perspective. It should be like that.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Sadhya Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you for the opportunity, Prabhu. I actually have to change my question. I want to follow up with Shailesh Prabhu's question because, we have one forum where we have Bhagavatam classes Monday through Friday. And we once had one ISKCON guru preach on that platform. And he said that only very advanced pure devotees should speak Bhagavatam. And another time we had another guru preach to us on that same platform. And so I asked that same question, and this other guru said, not necessarily, because in America, there is a saying that fake it until you make it. So my understanding is I didn't want to embarrass the guru who said only pure devotees, advanced devotees should speak Bhagavatam. Because the question is, if I ask whomever that, are you a pure devotee or are you advanced devotee? The natural answer is going to be no. Everybody is going to say no, because Sri Prabhupada says that, like in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, the author, at the end of every chapter, he will conclude that he's falling, and he means when he says he's falling. So pure devotees truly believe that they are falling. So if they are falling, how then did they speak the Bhagavatam? So I am of the opinion, like myself, I like to talk, and I'm not an advanced devotee. I'm nobody. But I believe that the more I talk about the Bhagavatam, the more I hear the Bhagavatam, that is how I get cleansed. Because if I have to wait till when I become pure, do I know if I can ever become pure? Then it means I don't have to listen to the Bhagavatam at all. Well, that's all I have to say. So I agree with what Prabhuji is saying, that if the devotee is not committing some serious offenses and trying his best to follow the principles, I think we have to listen to him or her.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Thank you, Sadhu. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you very much. Mahaprabhu willing, we'll meet next week. Continue from text number 32, chapter 15. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram.
Hare.
Pancha Kulpataru,